This. Hey, there we go. All right, so I'm recording now. This is going to be the SIG scale meeting for January 12th, 2017. So yeah, talking about etcd3 migration, like I think it was this group's goal to get etcd3 in, but we may not necessarily be the most qualified people to understand the smoothest way to run a migration, both forwards and backwards, which is why I'm wondering if it's worth at least getting help from cluster ops or cluster lifecycle in this regard.
Actually, I think that Wojtek was doing the most work on etcd roll forwards and roll backwards. So, and he's out of office, like on vacation this week. So, like, I guess we can ask him next one.
Yeah, there is a docs issue that I filed, and Wojtek is on it. I can link it into the thing. I just didn't know if someone was going to be explicitly assigned to it.
Yeah,
well, I can tell you, but go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joe, you appear to be muted if you're trying to talk.
Shoot. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so, okay. So, confusing interface on the mobile app here. So yeah, so the, between those two groups, I think the cluster ops group is probably the better one to reach out to. And so Rob would be the guy there. The lifecycle stuff, we're building up the tooling, but we're not quite to the point where upgrades are sort of bleeding edge there with stuff like kubeadmin. So it's going to be sort of more manual documentation now versus tooling. And so the cluster lifecycle is more focused on the tooling stuff.
I will CC the cluster ops folks on the issue, and I might assign Wojtek and me for the time being until Wojtek gets back.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also Matt MML was doing something around this, so you can CC him as well.
Sorry, could you paste that name in chat real quick for me?
MML, so I can pass, it's 3 letters.
Okay, NML, got it.
MML, 2 M's, 1 L, I believe.
I do think we should probably, once we have the docs in place, there should be probably a group of folks on this SIG that can run through it and validate and check it, because we kind of have to get this super right. If this goes out the door in a bad way, it's going to taint people's, experience.
That's exactly why I think this needs involvement from cluster ops or cluster lifecycle, because like I need somebody who's all the flail we went through upgrade testing for release 1.5, right? How is etcd3 and etcd2 going to factor into upgrade testing for this next release of Kubernetes? What are the scenarios that need to be tested? Is it this group's responsibility to come up with that? Because I feel like there are people in other groups who might be more paranoid and be better at coming up with the scenarios, but then whose responsibility it is to implement or describe how to deal with those scenarios, maybe that falls back on this group. But I think since upgrade testing got a lot of coverage and was really painful for the duration of 1.5, and I don't think etcd3 was even in the mix there, I want to make sure we're prepared for that. Like, is etcd2 still going to be let's ask the question this way. How long is etcd2 going to continue to be supported? What version of Kubernetes do we say etcd2 no longer works?
Well, the official support route for, where is Hong Chao? He's not on. The official support route for etcd3 is that it has etcd2 internally inside it, and they're still going with etcd3. So 2.3.7 is the last known version of 2, but every version of etcd3 that's being created actually has the 2 engine inside of it. You just need to start up with the existing legacy database. But the difference of Kubernetes is that we have enabled the --v3 client as the default, and we can enable the --2, which is what we've done for a long time now. The user can. So this is going to be part of the documentation. So we're still going to have etcd3 going forwards, no matter what. It's just whether or not we use the V2 client or the V3 client.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that sort of like, I keep trying to find the actual documented deprecation policy for alpha versus beta versus GA features, and as it applies to features, not just API stuff. And it seems like the support for etcd2 is something that needs to follow that kind of policy. So I'm trying to figure out how many versions of Kubernetes need to continue to support etcd2 as the default client as a potential configuration. And then you say it's just etcd3.
I hope it does not need to follow those guidelines, because those guidelines mean that if once something is GA, it will stay on to Kubernetes v2.
Well, that's kind of the open question here, right?
No, well, we'll see, I guess.
This is why I would run it past cluster ops to understand like how many people are actually running with etcd2, how many people are willing to upgrade to etcd3. Let's give ourselves some kind of forecast, like realistically, how long are we going to have to support multiple kinds of etcd?
Yeah, given the fact that I know the paranoia of cluster updates, not from myself, but for my customers, our customers, right? It is, they are very leery of changing things, and there's only a specific outage window that exists for them, because it's not all managed environments, right? GKE is vastly different than the plethora, cornucopia of different customers and environments that exist. So they're usually much more leery and about when and how they do their updates.
Yeah, but that's a good point. I don't know. Like, of course, the sooner we will be able to drop it, the better. Plus, etcd2 is so much slower than like. Yeah, we, for example, certainly won't promise to meet SLOs on etcd2.
Yeah, I think at some point we just need, it's a clean deprecation path from just dropping etcd3 in, and it supports both v2 and v3 clients.
Yep.
It's just a question of doing the data migration so that way when they start up, they can use v2 or v3.
Yep. Yeah, that's a hard problem.
Okay, so it sounds like, Tim, you want you and Wojtek to sort of own the issue on docs on this etcd3 stuff, and then maybe it sounds like we're thinking we want to run the scenarios that we would need to support past either, should it be cluster ops or cluster lifecycle? I'm still genuinely confused which is which and why. But like one of those two groups to get a real world cluster operator view from people who are leery about upgrades, just their paranoia.
So I've already loaded the
difference
engine.
between those,
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
yeah, the difference between those two is that cluster ops is focused on sort of best practices and guides, and cluster lifecycle is more focused on building unified tooling around this stuff. And at this point, in sort of where things are at, cluster ops is the right place to go, because lifecycle is only getting started with the upgrade story in terms of tooling upgrades to make it automatic. Does that make sense?
All right, so I heard cluster ops is best practices, cluster lifecycle is tooling to help support those best practices.
Yeah, I've also secretly pushed the agenda inside of SIG cluster lifecycle and talked with Lucas explicitly so that before they went to beta, they were only running etcd3 with v3 client. So they don't have to worry about this.
Okay, but so run this potentially past cluster ops and try to get a test plan together earlier, like well before code slush, so that we can maybe anticipate the risk of upgrade testing being a hot button issue. And we want to make sure that etcd3 is included in that. Is that a fair summary of what I heard?
That is a fair summary. And to be honest, I would like to have someone from Cargo and cluster ops kind of be the guinea pigs for some of this stuff. I'll have to reach out to them too.
Okay, I think that about covers that. I'm still finishing up notes on that. Next thing on the agenda, Merrick, we had some questions about how things are going with the KubeMark work this week.
Pretty well, I think. Like basically, I'm carrying a pager this week, so I kind of like am busy putting out fires. But as far as I know, there's like some minor problem. The node problem detector that we use in our end-to-end tests had some bug probably in it, and they did fix that went in whatever, like this week, I think. This is needed for KubeMark. The refactoring PR is done for quite some time. I reviewed it once, and I need to review it again. But as I said, I'm carrying a pager, which makes it hard. Yeah, so I think it should be easier to run in non-GCE environment pretty soon, if that was your question.
So this is at the end of this refactor, we anticipate that KubeMark could run either in GKE or GCE. Is that correct?
KubeMark can run on GKE and GCE right now. The difference is that we will disentangle all the master setup stuff from the cloud provider. So this will be a clean interface that someone would need to implement in like some few scripts, a few functions actually, for their whatever cloud they want to run on, or on-prem or anything, to be able to start KubeMark cluster, assuming they can already start full Kubernetes to run nodes.
We have someone on our side who's supposed to be dedicated to this. I need to loop them in. Red Hat has many hats, so I have to make sure he's actually dedicated.
Okay, like yeah, as I said, like the PR is done-ish, and I just like need to find some time to review it.
Okay. It's, I've been, even though I don't necessarily have comments on those PRs, I have been keeping track, and that you guys have been super productive on pushing KubeMark forward. So I'm excited to see that progress.
Yeah, we'll finally get someone to do it. Right?
Yeah, it's nice actually having dedicated resources, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
I believe that's all the specific stuff I had to talk about today, and that's everything that I saw on the agenda. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to talk about? We've got about 7 minutes left. Sweet.
Did Alejandro want to talk about the job controller stuff, other than we know it's bad?
I guess my concrete ask on the job controller stuff might be, is there an issue that we could link to, that we could like repro if we wanted to?
Exactly. If there's an issue, we can repro to, is there any documentation on it? Any ideas about what our solution should look like, etc. And maybe, do we own this project? And if so, then yeah, let's just start working on it.
You can always jump in and start working on it. I have to dig if there's an issue. Merrick, did you create one around the fact that the job controllers is slow?
Yes, I did, and I think Maciek actually. I'll just find it.
Yeah, if you can paste a link in Slack or in the meeting notes, that'd be helpful. And I mean, maybe a follow-up question from me. I know that Tim, like Red Hat's sort of been beating the drum about the fact that controllers are generally really chatty and inefficient. Is job controller just the particular problem child here, or is this part of a broader effort to kind of look at, all the controllers and tuning them down?
We've already done the broader controller work. I mean, David Eads, Wojtek, me, Rob, we've already fixed a lot of the broader controller problems with the caching and the watch updates. there used to be this core problem that they would relist too often. I don't know the details of the job controller, but I do know that if you're trying to institute any generic batch processing engine on Kubernetes without owning certain aspects of it, it will always be woefully inefficient. This is a state space that is highly, highly, highly tuned. So if you want a batch processing engine, create your own is the answer almost always.
I pasted the issue number on the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. I think that's in the meeting notes now. Okay. Just double checking. Quick ping from, I know Samsung said when we were discussing our 2017 goals that we're looking at coming up with a guide for sort of cluster sizing stuff. We don't have anything to share this week. We may have something to present to the group by next week. Other than that, that's pretty much all the updates I had from my side.
I have one question actually, and it kind of goes back to a discussion we had about a month ago almost. I know right now proposals are kind of on hold right now, but where are we at in terms of owning proposals and projects and et cetera?
I don't know. I'd love to hear.
Working on it, so I'm just wondering, like, if we have a conclusion, an opinion.
I feel like this might be a broader discussion at the community chat. Joe or Tim, maybe you guys have a better opinion on this, because there's been a fair amount of drama over this whole proposal thing. And I'm hoping we're going to get a chance to talk about it a little bit more in depth today, but what this group's stance is on it, I'm not quite clear.
I don't really have any strong opinions on it. I think it depends upon what company has the ability to put resources behind a proposal, and I think ownership would be pretty clearly demarcated based upon what the work is. Our SIG is, usually about optimization and tuning and potentially re-architecting some pieces. And if it falls underneath those sort of buckets, then I think we'd have ownership over it. But, it'd probably cross into other SIGs too as well. So I think it'd be like co-ownership in most situations.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But there was some sort of a talk about completely separating out what responsibility does per group, per SIG. And it seems like if we are proposing something that we are owners of it, and then we should be the ones kind of pushing that proposal through. And until now, we really hadn't had that kind of control over our proposals, right? It's kind of led up to the community as a whole to kind of decide what the ideas of the proposal should look like, what it should go through, et cetera, whether it's accepted or not. And now it seems like it's our responsibility to do so. So I'm wondering if the SIGs have actually gone through this kind of discussion internally and figured out what the right path to getting this proposal accepted, reviewed, and then, worked at. I'm not sure if we've actually ever talked about that, but I'd like to know kind of what the thinking is currently and if we're moving towards a direction or we're just not really doing that.
I think I'm going to side with Aaron and say it's broader community question.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of want to take guidance from the community to see what we as a community would like to do to push stuff into this release. And then from there, the decision we make on that can inform how we as a SIG would like to triage, review, and design proposal ownership and all those responsibilities. By the way, I don't even want to talk about the PM rep thing. That's something I'll chat offline about with Bob and Tim and Joe to figure out what we want to do about that.
Can someone actually tell a bit, it wasn't reading emails?
No, I don't think it was communicated at all. I'm going to raise this during the community.
So what exactly is this whole thing about?
I'm not even sure I really know, right? I tried to sum it up in the email I sent where it sounded like the PM group would like a representative from each SIG to attend weekly PM meetings so that the PM group understands which features are being implemented by whom and what their status is. And I think that is ass backwards. I think that if the PM group is the group that owns the feature and cares about it, they should be showing up to SIG meetings to understand what the SIG is doing to work on their feature. This is pretty much the way that things have worked inside of Google as I understand it. You know, the PM is sort of the advocate for the feature and it's their job to chase it down. Let's chat about this over community and see where things evolve from there. But that's why, like, I don't think it's worth a broader discussion in this meeting at the moment because it seems like it's still being sorted out.
Yeah, I put a comment. For those who are interested, it's community pulse 263, and I'll paste it in chat. But I put my comments in there of what I think already. I could, if you want to banter, I could add more colorful comments, but I want to make sure that we're not on record before I do that.
Actually, on that note, I am going to stop the recording because it is 9:30, and I think that's basically the end of our meeting here. Awesome seeing everybody. We'll see you at community here.